last week, when I finished my talk here, somebody came and they asked me, could I do a talk on preparing for our twilight years, for preparing for our old age. And it certainly does make it a bit easier when people give me a subject to talk about, because it means it's something that we're all interested in. So I'm actually going to start off with probably something that normally doesn't happen in a Dhamma talk. I'm going to use the words of a song. I won't sing it because I'd like you all to stay here for the Dhamma talk. I don't want you to go home at the very beginning. This is from a group, I don't know, some of you may know them, called Pink Floyd. Very big group in the 60s and the 70s. Possibly showing my age here. And the song is called Time. And I often wonder when I listen to the lyrics of some of the bands, is how much of a Buddhist influence sometimes is in some of their lyrics. So anyway, the song goes like this. Just ticking away the moments that make up a dull day. You fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way. Kicking around on a piece of ground in your hometown, waiting for someone or something to show you the way. Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. You are young and life is long, and there is time to kill today. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. So you run and you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking, racing around to come up behind you again. The sun is the same in a relative way, but you're older, shorter of breath, and one day closer to death. There's a little bit more of the song, but I won't go into it. As you can see, there's certainly some lyrics in there that a Buddhist can apply in their life. Fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way. Get home from work, you watch the television. You could be reading the Dhamma, studying the Dhamma, could be meditating. And it's true, it says, you are young and life is long, there is time to kill today, and then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. I'm amazed at how quickly 54 came around. One minute I was a teenager, and next thing I was getting old. The years seem to tick by you quite quickly when you get to a certain point in life. So, in the Jara Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 48-41, Sutta on old age, it says, I've heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying near Savatthi in the eastern monastery, the palace of Nigara's mother. Now on that occasion the Blessed One, on emerging from seclusion in the late afternoon, sat warming his back in the western sun. Then Venerable Ananda went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to the Blessed One, massaged the Blessed One's limbs with his hands. And he said, it's amazing, Lord. It's astounding how the Blessed One's complexion is no longer so clear and bright. His limbs are flabby and wrinkled. Brave man, actually, Venerable Ananda. Imagine that, telling the Buddha that he's getting flabby and wrinkled. Not sure I've done it. He says, his back bent forward, there's a discernible change in his faculties. The faculty of the eye, the faculty of the ear, the faculty of the nose, the faculty of the tongue, and the faculty of the body. The Buddha says, that's the way it is, Amanda. When young, one is subject to aging. When healthy, subject to illness. When alive, subject to death. The complexion is no longer so clear and bright. The limbs are flabby and wrinkled, the back bent forward. There's a discernible change in the faculties. The faculty of the eye, the faculty of the ear, the faculty of the nose, the faculty of the tongue, the faculty of the body. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said that, the one well gone, the teacher said further, I spit on you, old age. Old age that makes for ugliness. The bodily image so charming is trampled by old age. Even those who live to 100 are headed all to an end in death, which spares no one and which tramples all. So you can see even the Buddha, we always look at these Buddha statues, and the Buddha has got a very lean body, golden complexion, back straight. But we see that even in old age, the Buddha lost that complexion, lost that back, the straight back. Sounds like his eyesight was going, so we're in good company there, folks. All of us wearing glasses, it looks like the Buddha was starting to have his eyesight go a little bit as well. So even the Buddha is subject to aging, sickness and death. It was funny because when I was asked to do this Dhamma talk, I wasn't quite sure how to go about this particular task. Because people often say to me, have I set any money aside for my old age? Especially us Westerners, they think we all have money tucked away somewhere. Or they ask me if I've got any property anywhere. And the answer to that question is no. I have no money. No, I have no property. Am I entitled to a pension? No, I'm not entitled to a pension. You see, in New Zealand, in order to get a pension, you must work a certain number of years. And I think 10 of those years you must work from the age of 20 onwards. I think, well, maybe 5 of the years. I think you have to work 10 years in New Zealand to get a government pension, to get a state pension. And maybe 5 of them has to be after the age of 20. Well, I left New Zealand at the age of 19. So that chucks me well and truly out of the pension range. So I'm not entitled to a New Zealand pension. And so basically I don't have any sort of a plan whatsoever for my old age. But as a monk, I'm not particularly worried about this aspect. But if I was a lay person, then I would be in all sorts of trouble. I'd probably have to race back to New Zealand and work for several years just to try and get a pension up. And of course, the pension system, I don't know if you actually have a pension here, but in New Zealand, it doesn't pay much. You might be able to survive on the pension, but you're certainly not going to be living on the pension. Which is a bit unfair, really. I mean, when you stop and think about it, life can be pretty lousy sometimes. I mean, you get born and there's not much you can do for a couple of years. You can't even walk properly, crawl around on the floor, and every time you move, your mother picks up and dumps you somewhere so that you can't escape it. And then when you do finally learn how to walk and you're capable of running around, they go and shove you to school, don't they? And you expected to stay in school from the age of, 4 or 5 to the age of 18, maybe go off to university. And when you finish that, you're expected to start working. And they want you to work until you're 65. And if you're lucky, you might get 10 years. Where you're actually not having to clock in and do something that everybody else is telling you to do. So, we need money though for these years. I mean, who wants to get to 65 and then not be able to enjoy their life? It doesn't sound like a lot of fun. So, as lay people, how do we go about ensuring that our later years are not too uncomfortable? So, there's a couple of aspects we have to look at here. One is a practical aspect. And the practical aspect is, and most of you people here are Chinese descent, so we all know that you're going to get pushed when you go to school. All these tiger mums who are going to make sure that you're there every day, and when you come home you will do your homework before you do anything else, because they want you to have good grades. And it's important, it's necessary to have good grades, because when we have good grades when we start school, then we can attend the university of our choice. And we want to attend the best university, because hopefully at this stage we've worked out what we want to do when we actually finish our education. What career path that we wish to take. And so we have to work hard at school, we have to get these grades up, no matter how boring it is. I have zip in the way of education. I did have a plan when I was 13, 14, and that was just to travel around the world and work as little as I possibly could. Well, I think I expected to have more money, but most of my plan came correct. I did a lot of travelling, but I had no education to fall back on. I had no career that I can fall back on as a lay person. So now most of us, when we're going for a career, a couple of things that we want. One, we want to enjoy the job that we do. This is why we choose particular careers, because we think we'll enjoy that particular job. Nobody picks a career they're going to hate. And of course, we all want to make money in our given profession. This is why people become lawyers, advertising executives and stuff like this. Really lucky, maybe you become a rock star and you start singing songs that some monk will be starting to read out 45 years after you first do it. So we want to make a good living. So we start to earn money. But we have to be sensible with what we do with our money. There's an expression in English that says money talks. Whenever I used to have it, I used to say goodbye. I was hopeless at saying it. What I want to put in a bank for, better in my pocket, and I could spend it. But we have to start putting money aside. Because some of these savings will actually go towards our retirement. And the money we've got in the bank, plus the money that the government gives us, we may actually be able to have a half-decent retirement. Maybe you buy your own home, your own apartment. That's always a good idea. We see so many old people living on a piece of cardboard underneath a bridge. If they had their own home, life would, generally speaking, be a lot better for them than living under a bridge. Now most of us, when we're young adults, we want to find a partner, settle down and you want to raise a family. And you've got your own home, it's even better. It's, one thing you don't want is to be bringing up your children underneath the bridge. And we see this as well. We see people with their families who are homeless. We've got some of the charities that go out every so often and deliver food to these people. It's not a nice thing. And a house is a nice safe place to bring up a child. Good environment for the child to grow up in. Now, it's also important that we treat our children well. We need to care for them, nurture them, and love them unconditionally. And that unconditional love, that can be really difficult. I was a horrible child. My mother used to take aspirin when she saw me in the morning because she knew she'd get a headache. But no matter how disappointing our children are, we need to love them unconditionally. And this is very difficult, but we have to do it. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, we brought them into this world. That was our fault. Can't blame the child for that. We brought them into the world. We wanted to have children. And so we have a responsibility to give the children the best start that we can in life. We owe it both to the children and we owe it to the society in which we live. You see, if you bring your children up badly, what sort of citizens are they going to be? You let them out of the home and they just become a burden to the rest of society. So we have to do our best to give our children a good start in life and to instill in them the values that's going to help them become tomorrow's upright citizens. They're not just going to be citizens of this nation, they're citizens of the world. We travel more and more these days. Even with, you guys joining ASEAN, children are going to travel further and further afield looking for employment, better opportunities, things like this. So we need to give them that good start in life. And when they do go, they won't bring shame upon their family, they won't bring shame upon their nation. So we need to teach them respect. But in order to teach a child respect, we have to give a child respect as well. We have to respect the needs, physical and emotional needs of the child. We have to give them lots of love. And then as we get older, they will give that love back to us. And our children won't forget. And even when they've been in trouble, they can look back at it and say, yeah, even in my dark times, my mum and my dad, they were there for me. They'll remember the love that you had for them, that unconditional love. And they'll return this love to you as they grow older. It may not seem like it when they're teenagers, Teenagers don't show a lot of love to anybody. They're just grumpy people. It's the phase they're going through. But they do. Even though they use the word, I hate you, quite frequently. They want to go out, done your homework? No. Do your homework, I hate you. You don't understand me. But they do, they get over it. They don't really hate you. So if we don't love our children unconditionally, then it's no surprise that they're going to leave home and neglect us. Because they do remember those things. And then the other thing that we have to take care of is our spiritual life. Not a lot of young people here tonight. youngish, but not super young. We're ugly. Why haven't they come? Okay, it's Thursday night. Perhaps they're respecting their parents' wishes and doing their homework. But how many of them are just off, wanting to enjoy the time with their friends? This is something I see so often in temples. I see the older people and the very young people. A lot of teenagers in the temple coming to listen to the Dhamma talks, coming to do the chanting. Why is that? Because they think they've got time. They think when they get older, they can attend the temple. So we see them on, so, I'm sure Chinese New Year, there's going to be lots of teenagers in the temples, special occasions, Wesak. Even young adults, birth of a child, they might come to get the child blessed by the monks and stuff like that. But the rest of the time, they're just, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to go to the temple. Oh, can you give Dhamma for me? I'm too busy. I need to do something. Now they seem to think there's plenty of time in the future to listen to the Dhamma and to practice the Dhamma. And that's a risky thought. What guarantee is there of getting old? I lost many of my friends in their teens or in their early 20s. Car accidents, drug overdoses, things like this. No guarantee of getting old. And you pick up the newspaper every day, read reports of people killed in traffic accidents. And a few aeroplanes go down. Natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis. And none of the people who get killed, those people who jumped on that, that last aeroplane, none of them jumped on that aeroplane believing they were going to die. They jumped on that aeroplane believing they were going to go to Singapore. We don't know when our life is going to be up. I had a friend when I was about 16, 17. We were at a party, and one of my other mates, he called to me and he said, "Oh, you better come on here. Scotty's dead." Well, that would be typical of him, I'd die in the middle of a party, So I went down to where he was, and he was laying on the ground, so I kicked him. Oh, get up. And he didn't move, so I kicked him again. Get up. And now I don't have a closer inspection rather than just kicking the guy. And he actually stopped breathing, he was dead. So we found an ambulance and he survived it, but he had 6 heart attacks that night. This guy's 16 years old. He has 6 heart attacks. So we don't know when our time was up. It's really, really risky. When you start saying, I've got plenty of time. I'll listen to the Dhamma when I get older. Especially when we start to age. And all of a sudden it becomes obvious that our bodies aren't working quite as well as they used to. So the vision can start to go. You get that. The bones making cracking noises when you stand up. Like, oh my gosh, that's an old person's sound. And somebody suddenly wants you, they said you start to make those strange noises when you go to stand up. Oh. It's like, gosh, we do, don't we? Because our bodies start to hurt. The bones start to hurt. Creak and crack. So the eyesight starts to go, the hearing can start to go. And of course, in many, many cases, the memory starts to go. Now we see people suffering from senile dementia, Alzheimer's disease, things like that. They can't even remember what they did 2 minutes before. They can't even remember their loved ones. I remember visiting a woman in hospital who had Alzheimer's. I went with her granddaughter. And every 2 minutes, she'd just look at her still and go, "Who are you? Who are you?" She had no idea. Every 2 months, the granddaughter's going, "I'm your granddaughter." "Oh, that's nice, dear." "Who are you?" I mean, how terrible is that? And this happens so much. And if we get to this stage, we've got no chance of practicing. How are you going to remember what you were taught if your memory has gone that far? How are you going to quiet your mind to meditate? You can't do it. You sit down and meditate and you've got arthritis. All you can think about is the pain of the arthritis, your joints aching. Even the idea of sitting down to meditate doesn't seem like a good idea, because you know as soon as you sit down, your bones are going to start to ache. We've left it too late. And so what do? We just sit and we wait for the end to come, believing that, oh well, once it's over, it's over. Because we know once it's over, it's not over. It's just beginning again. So we need to start practicing when we're young, when we have pliable bodies and pliable minds. This is the time that we need to start practicing. Now we can exercise our bodies without too much difficulty. We can also exercise our minds without too much difficulty. Now you can sit down, you can do the crossword puzzle. That's a good exercise for the mind. What's that thing they call it? Sudoku or whatever it's called. That's what people are doing now. That is good for the mind. It helps to keep the mind sharp. And that's better than watching television and watching those soap operas. They just turn your brains to mush. But it's even more important that we listen to the Dhamma. When we're young, we need to hear the Dhamma, and then we need to start to apply the Dhamma in our lives as young people. Now it's no good just listening to the Dhamma and saying to yourself, "Well, that sounds good," and then going out and doing whatever it is that you feel like doing. It goes against the teachings of the Buddha. It's like counting the cattle of someone else. And you think, "Wow, how wonderful it is for that person to have so many cattle." The cattle won't ever belong to you. You get no benefit from counting another person's cattle. It's like a sick person who goes to the doctor. You go to the doctor and the doctor listens to the symptoms, knows what's wrong with you, and he prescribes you some medication. So then you go to the pharmacist, and you get the pharmacist the prescription, and the pharmacist gives you your medication, and on the tablets and that, it says, take one tablet 3 times a day before meals, take one tablet twice daily after food. And that's good, that sounds good. So you read the directions, and then you go and put the tablets into the cupboard. And then, wow, that doctor was smart, eh? He knew exactly what I needed. But we don't take the medication. We're going to die if we don't take the medication. It's no use just listening to the doctor's prognosis of the problem and thinking how wise and wonderful the doctor was. How great it was that he went to a medical university and got his degree in doctoring. We have to listen to what the doctor says, and we need to take the advice that the doctor gave us. So we need to exercise a little bit, take these tablets for X amount of time, and we should be okay. This is the way that we get better, not just from thinking that the doctor is very, very astute with what he had to say. And here we can compare the Buddha with the doctor. The Buddha's told us that this life, this body is a massive suffering. He's told us the cause of the suffering. And he's prescribed the medication, the Dhamma. He will give us the release from the suffering. But if all we do is listen to the teachings of the Buddha, and we don't put it into practice, we will die without having put an end to this constant cycle of samsara that we find ourselves in. I've actually known people who felt unwell, but they won't go to the doctor because they don't want to annoy him with their problems. That's what the doctor's there for. That's what he trained for. So I'll wait until I get better and then I'll go and see the doctor. Well, it's pointless going to see the doctor when you're better. You don't need him then. Some people say that they're too busy to go and see the doctor. Sometimes they're just too stubborn. Us men are like that, aren't they? Men are terrible. I get a man to go and see a doctor. And the worst people on the planet. They complain the most when they're sick, like big babies. But they're too macho to go and visit the doctor. I don't get a doctor, I'm a man. And so they just suffer and suffer and suffer. They're too stubborn. They won't admit that they're actually unwell. And I've known men like this. I've been a bit like it myself in the past. I've been sick, but I've been too stubborn to admit that I'm sick. There's no way that I'm going to admit that I'm a sick person. And quite often, by the time we actually get to see the doctor, it's too late. You hear of people, they're always urging us now to go for these different cancer checkups. And often they say, if you had come to me 6 months ago, you might have been able to beat this cancer, but you've left it too late. And this happens a lot. And again, normally with men. Men die of prostate cancer because they don't go to the doctor very regularly. And so many of these cancers could have been cured if they had only put aside their stubbornness and gone and seen a doctor. And it's the same with the teachings of the Buddha. We need to start practicing at the earliest possible time. For me personally, I didn't start practicing Buddhism until I was in my 40s. Quite late, really. Especially when I think of how many non-virtuous actions that I did through body, speech and mind. I'm actually playing catch-up. You run to catch up to the sun that is sinking. But at least I've started to practice. That's one thing that I think if I'd have left it another 5 or 10 years, perhaps I would have been dead. Or just even in a situation where it just wasn't going to happen, too busy to bother. But I'm lucky because at a stage, even when I was fairly late, at least I heard the Dhamma and I was able to comprehend the Dhamma. And with me, it's not actually easy for me to retain all of the Dhamma. I've blown out so many brain cells on booze and drugs. I actually don't have the greatest memory on the planet. That's why you always see me with a chanting book. And slowly I can start to remember the chants. It takes a long time for the chant to come in and for the chant to stay there. Because I really messed with my drugs. Messed with the alcohol. And I thought it was funny at the time, but now, as I say, it's very difficult to remember things sometimes. And this is why we need to start practicing when we're younger. Because when we're younger, we haven't done all that damage to the brain cells, hopefully. And you're able to retain these things, you're able to remember these things. I'm not too bad, because at least I can remember the Noble Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths, which is enough. It's enough just to be able to retain those in my mind. That's enough of the Buddha's teaching to help me along the way. If I need to keep the chanting book with me, it's not a problem. But when I don't have any books with me, I still understand life is suffering, the cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. But a lot of people leave it too late to even get to that stage. And it becomes very difficult for them. They can't begin to comprehend the teachings of the Buddha. And they're never ever going to be able to start the practice of meditation. Never going to be able to still their minds. When you have so much junk in your mind, you'll know how difficult it is to get rid of it. And for many of us, we practice for a long time. Set up a daily practice. And we know just how quickly our mind goes here, there, wandering off. Can you imagine somebody who's 50, 60, 70 years old, who's basically led a hedonistic lifestyle, and then all of a sudden they want to sit down and start the practice of meditation. That's going to be a very difficult thing to do. Not impossible, but for most people it's going to be very hard. And the really sad thing is, they're not even going to be able to attain stream entry. Now, you guys have heard me speak about stream entry before. And this is the minimum that we all need to be chasing after, if you so like. The Buddha taught Nibbana. He taught the stages of Nibbana. And I said here a few weeks ago, every one of us has the possibility, because no matter what you've heard, the attaining of stream entry is not difficult. It is relatively easy. Not the hard thing that some people try to make it out to be. And this is what we should be aiming at the very least. We don't want to be aiming for a heavenly rebirth, because the heavenly realms are impermanent. And there's no guarantee that just because you're in a heavenly realm, that your next rebirth is going to be a good realm. You could come out of the heavenly realms, out of the diva realms. You could wind up as a hungry ghost. You could wind up as a cockroach. You could wind up in a hell realm. But if we attain stream entry, You can't end up as a cockroach, or as a hungry ghost, or an hellrat. We attain stream entry, we know that we're guaranteed no more than 7 rebirths, and you cannot take rebirth in a lower realm. So this is what we need to be going after. As I say, if we leave the practice too late, then that's going to become very, very difficult for people, even attaining stream entry. So when we're preparing for our twilight years, it is best if we start young. Like I said, when you start saving money, if you start to save money when you're 60, you're not going to have much when you're 70. But if you start to save money when you're 6, you're going to have quite a lot in your bank by the time you're 70. And it's the same with our spiritual bank account. The earlier we start, the more we're going to get out of it. It's going to make your life a lot more comfortable. I attended a funeral recently, and the gentleman who died, he was in a... Well, they were putting him up with morphine, because he was in a lot of pain. He had some form of cancer, and he was in a lot of pain. And so they had him on morphine to ease the pain. But he requested a monk to go to the hospital and do some chanting. And so one of the monks from here went out to the hospital and got beside the hospital bed. And they said, he's pretty much in a comatose state, but he requested, before he went into this vegetative state, that a monk come and do some chanting. So the monk began chanting, and the guy was laying on his bed, and he put 2 thumbs up. This is somebody who's practiced the Dhamma. Even in that state where he was so doped up, he could hear the chanting of the monk with 2 thumbs up. This is what we need to be able to do as we're getting older, is to be able to recognize and to remember these things. Now, if you're like me and you've left a little bit too late, as long as you've got some brain cells left, at least we can still hear the Dhamma. We can understand the Dhamma, and we can start to put the Dhamma into practice. This is the other important thing that we have to remember. It's putting the Dhamma into practice. People keep saying to me, it's Buddhism, it's not a religion, it's a philosophy. It's not a philosophy either. Philosophy, 2 Latin words, philo and sophy. Philo is love. Sophie is not a girl. Sophie is, I love Sophie. Sophie is knowledge. Buddhism is not a love of knowledge. Love of knowledge, it's not the wisdom. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you don't put tomatoes in a fruit salad, This is how knowledge and wisdom is. So Buddhism is not a philosophy. It's a way of life. May not be a religion, but it's definitely not a philosophy. It's a way of life. So while we're young enough, we need to start putting the Dhamma into practice. Just understanding the Dhamma is not enough. It just makes us a knowledgeable person. Always got understanding of the Buddha Dhamma, and the Quran, and the Bible, and the Torah doesn't make you a spiritual person just because you have knowledge of all these things. Now when we get older, we're deciding to start doing the practice when we're a little bit older. We want to start meditating. We've got things like arthritis, rheumatism. Sit in a chair. We can sit in a chair. We have these people and they say that you have to sit in the full lotus position to meditate. No, you don't. Yeah, the Buddha recommended to the monks how to sit in meditation. Full lotus position. Palms one on top of the other, straight back. But he was talking to people that first of all grew up in a culture where they're used to sitting on the floor. They're used to sitting cross-legged. Quite easy for them to actually sit in the full lotus position. So you get these purists, they say you have to sit in the full lotus position. Well, what if you've only got one leg? How does a one-legged person sit in the full lotus position? They cannot. Now, I don't think the Buddha tried to say if you've only got one leg, you're not allowed to meditate. So the full lotus position is good. It gives you a very good base. You don't go rocking backwards and forwards or sideways in the full lotus position. But for those of us who can't do it, some of us sit in the half lotus. Some sit in what they call the Burmese position. Others can sit in a chair. Nothing wrong with sitting in a chair. But if you're sitting in a chair, you need to try and keep your back straight. All you Chinese know about qi. So we understand that, if our backs are straight, then the qi, the energy, flows a lot more freely than if we bent forward. Now the other problem is when you sit in a chair, if you leaning backwards is conducive to falling to sleep. When you sit in a position where you're leaning back, your body tells your brain that it's night time. Not off to sleep every day. So we have to try and keep it straight back, but not a rigid back. But so we can see that even in our older years, we can still do the practice. We don't have to give up the practice just because we're getting a little old. So the older we get, the more we need to practice. So I'm just going to finish off by saying, all the time you have any breath in your body, this is the time to practice. Because you can't practice when you're dead. Okay? So hopefully this has helped answer the question on how to prepare ourselves for our twilight years. We'll get to questions in a minute. I just want to say, I'm not been saying it for the last few weeks, but this is my final Dhamma talk here. For the time being. Any of you who are anywhere near Brickfields, I'll be there tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And then after that I'll be out of the country for a while. So this time, this is truly my final Dhamma talk here at Sentul for a little while. It's been an absolute pleasure to have met with you people. Not only on a Thursday evening, but other days of the week. We're coming in doing Dhamma, coming in for the chanting. It has been a real blessing. I'm sorry I won't be with you this Chinese New Year. My original plan was my visa expires on the 21st, so that was going to be the day I flew out, but I was requested to go to Indonesia on the 14th for something that's happening on the 15th. So unfortunately, I won't be spending Chinese New Year here. But they do tell me where I'm going. The population is mainly Chinese, and so I was certainly thinking of everybody here at the temple as I celebrate Chinese New Year in Malaysia. Thank you for all of your time, all of your kindness. Are there any questions, any comments? Yeah.
So you mentioned a lot about practicing the Dhamma. Right? So as a lay person, could you tell me the top, I mean there are a lot for us to practice, but the top three, like keeping the precept or meditation, or what are the really essential top three?
Okay.
Practice.
Morality, so keeping the precepts to the best of our ability. Now, I always say to the best of our ability because we make mistakes. Often say, especially people who are driving to work in the morning, there might be some wrong speech as people cut across the front of your car, squeeze you out, won't let you in. You may give a little bit of wrong speech, maybe a few wrong bodily actions, some of your hand signals might be a bit more. So we have to start by practicing keeping the precepts. Now, we also need to practice generosity. And this is what happens when, like the people that come in and they give Dhamma, for instance, in the mornings or at lunchtime. Why we practice generosity is because what we're trying to get rid of is greed, hatred, and delusion. See? So the practice of generosity starts to get rid of greed. And it also starts to get rid of hatred. And also starts to get rid of delusion. They're actually all they're tying them together. So we start with the practice of morality, generosity, and then just understanding the Four Noble Truths. Now, the understanding of the Four Noble Truths is very, very important. Meditation is important, but interestingly enough, it's actually not a prerequisite to stream entry. In fact, there's even a little bit about whether or not it's necessary to become a Sakadagami. But I would suggest that if you are heading towards becoming a Sakadagami, you're probably meditating anyway. But definitely for stream entry, in all the sutras, there's actually no mention of meditation required for it. But, of course, most of us as Buddhists, meditation goes hand in hand with listening to the Dhamma, so we tend to start practicing meditation anyway. So yeah, it's just basically a bit of morality, a bit of generosity, and the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is really important because all the other religions also have generosity and morality. But they are missing the Dhamma. And we can literally bring the Dhamma down to the Four Noble Truths. All the rest of the sutras are basically explaining things about the Four Noble Truths to different audiences in different ways. But it all comes back to the Four Noble Truths. So that's all there is to it. It's actually a very, very simple religion, isn't it? It's just the keeping of the precepts that becomes very difficult. Especially number 5. Number 5 seems to be a very, very difficult one. It's the word. See? Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people say that it's okay, just to have a drink. But actually the precept doesn't say that. You see, because they say it's okay if I just have a beer or a glass of wine. They say, no, it's not. No, because the precept says, I undertake the training rule to abstain from intoxicants that lead to heedlessness. It doesn't say, I undertake the training rule not to get drunk. See? So that first drink is what leads to heedlessness. And there's a lot of people disagree with me on this one until I give them this. If it's okay, if the precept says it's okay for you to have a beer with your lunch, why don't you people bring the monks here a beer with their Dhamma? You would be horrified if you came in here at lunchtime and all the monks had a bottle of beer in front of them, but the precept we take is exactly the same as the precept that you take. Now, here's the question. Is it okay for us monks to have a beer with our lunch? No. So that pretty much answers the question on intoxicants. Anybody else? That's quite simple. Say, oh no thanks, I don't drink. Just say, no thank you, I don't drink. I mean, it's true. Well, this is true, but you see, somebody asked me once in Thailand, and it was coming up towards Christmas, and this Thai person actually said, they said, what's Christmas for? And I said, it's the time of the year, I said then, that us Westerners get really drunk. And she said, you Westerners are always really drunk. And I said, that's because it's such a big festival. I said, we have to practice all year. I said, so that we can do it properly at Christmas time. Because Christmas and New Year in Western society is about getting drunk. You know, the concept of, this Christ was born on Christmas Day means absolutely zip to the vast majority of Westerners, The average Westerner is like, I got drunk on Christmas Day. I can't remember Christmas Day. It's a cultural thing. I met a guy from South Africa, a South African Buddhist, and I don't know how you guys know South Africans, they love to barbecue, or braai, as they call it. And you got lekker braai, meat. Jeez, can they eat meat? You put an elephant onto a barbecue in South Africa, and it would go in about 5 minutes, the big meat eaters. Well, this guy, he became a Buddhist, and he became a vegetarian, and he gave up drinking. And I remember saying to him, I said, how does that work in South Africa? He still goes to barbecues, but he gets them to barbecue vegetables for him. They just think he's really weird, but they still accept it, We can say no. To say that, I need to drink because it's a cultural thing. It's something that's crept into our culture somewhere along the line. I mean, I come from New Zealand, so we have a very big drinking culture. If you don't drink, they think you're gay. So it's like, but a lot of people don't drink in New Zealand. They don't want to anymore, so they're giving it up. So they just say, no thanks, I don't drink. No, what's wrong, mate? You're gay or something. It doesn't make them go back to the alcohol, And none of your friends, if they're friends, they're not going to dislike you because you don't drink. The important thing is not to nag them about their drinking. If they drink, so be it. Your job is not to stop your friends from drinking. However, sometimes your friends can see you having a good time without the alcohol, and maybe that's enough to make them think that they can at least start by cutting down on their alcohol. They may not stop straight away, but they may start to realise they don't need to get drunk to have fun. And so that's how you can affect them. As I say, we don't get all high and mighty and so righteous, because that's not the way to get anybody to try and follow you. They'll just hate you if you do that. But if you just say, no thanks, I don't drink. And if they say, why not? Then you can say to them, because, I'm not trying to keep my Buddhist precepts. Now you said the Dhamma, you've used the word Buddhist, you've used the word precepts, and you're actually trying to live like a Buddhist. So, in just a 5-second sentence, you just spread the Dhamma, you just can't receive the Dhamma into something, and that could grow into a big Bodhi tree of Dhamma. Anybody else? Okay, there's nothing else. We'll call it a night.